Have you ever felt like you're just fine? It's a strange word, isn't it? Fine. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just existing. For most of my adult life, that's how I described myself. I wasn't seriously sick, not in the way that sends you to a doctor. But was I healthy? Looking back now, the answer is a definitive no. I was living in a state of delusion, a gray area I thought was normal for a young man trying to build a career. In his book, Dr. Hiromi Shinya describes this state perfectly with a term from Eastern medicine. It literally means not yet sick. It's that precarious state right before a real illness takes hold, and I realize now that so many of us are living there. I thought the constant tiredness, the afternoon brain fog, the bad skin, the unpredictable stomach. I thought that was just the price of admission for being an adult. I was wrong, so incredibly wrong. This is the story of how I woke up from that delusion. It's the story of how one book, with a somewhat strange title, didn't just give me information, it gave me a new operating system for my own body. This is my journey with the enzyme factor. To understand where I am now, you have to understand the person I was. Let's paint a more detailed picture of my old life. A typical Tuesday. The alarm would blare at 7 a.m., and the first feeling was dread. I'd hit snooze at least twice. The first thing I'd reach for wasn't a glass of water. It was my phone, scrolling endlessly, feeding my brain with digital junk before I'd even fed my body. The second thing? A huge mug of strong, black coffee. Breakfast was a luxury I told myself I didn't have time for. If I was lucky, it was a sugary pastry grabbed on the way to work, eaten in the car. Most days, it was just the coffee, a jolt of acid and caffeine on a completely empty stomach. I thought it was my productivity hack, but in reality, it was just throwing my body's delicate hormonal balance into chaos from the moment I woke up. By 1 p.m., the effects of the morning caffeine had worn off, and I was starving, irritable, and unfocused. Lunch was a mission of speed and convenience, never nourishment. I remember my go-to options vividly. There were the fast food Fridays that bled into Tuesdays and Wednesdays, usually a greasy burger and large fries that I'd devour at my desk in under 10 minutes while trying to answer emails. An hour later, I'd feel this heavy, greasy fog settle in my stomach and my brain. Then there were the instant noodle nights that became instant noodle lunches, a quick, cheap fix that was essentially just salt and processed carbs. I was barely tasting the food, just shoveling it in. The consequence was always the same, a massive energy crash around 2:30 p.m. I was living in a vicious cycle. Caffeine to start, a heavy, processed lunch to slow me down, and then, inevitably, sugar to artificially speed back up. An energy drink from the vending machine, a chocolate bar, a bag of salty chips. I was a chemical experiment, and I was the mad scientist who had no idea what he was doing, completely ignoring my body's desperate pleas for real nutrients. Dinner was supposed to be my reward for a hard day's work. I was a firm believer in the eat big to get big mantra from my gym-going days. So, dinner was almost always centered around a large portion of animal protein. A thick-cut steak, a whole roasted chicken, a massive serving of cheesy pizza. I thought protein was king, the absolute pinnacle of nutrition. Afterwards, to unwind, I'd have a couple of cold beers while watching TV. But the eating rarely stopped there. Around 10 or 11 p.m., the late-night cravings, fueled by the day's poor food choices, would kick in. A family-sized bag of chips, a tub of ice cream, leftover pizza. I would go to bed with a full, gurgling, uncomfortable stomach every single night. I told myself this was normal. This was what it meant to be a hard-working adult who enjoyed life. And what was the result of this lifestyle? My body was screaming at me with daily SOS signals, but I had my headphones on, completely tuned out. The book lists symptoms of the subhealthy state: constipation, diarrhea, insomnia, shoulder pain. It was like a checklist of my life. I had chronic bloating. I was swinging between constipation for days and then sudden, urgent diarrhea. I had persistent acne on my back and face that I thought I should have outgrown in my teens. And sleep? I would fall into bed exhausted but lie awake for hours, my mind racing, my stomach churning. I'd wake up feeling like I'd run a marathon, not slept for 7 hours. I wasn't just tired, I was resigned. I had accepted this low-energy state as my new normal. It felt like my youth was slipping away, not in years, but in vitality. I was treating my body like a rental car that I could drive into the ground and simply trade in for a new one. I was about to find out that there are no trade-ins. I found this book by pure chance. A friend, seeing how rundown I was, mentioned it. The Enzyme Factor. I was deeply skeptical. It sounded like another fad, but I had reached a breaking point. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize the tired, puffy-faced person looking back. I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what. So, I bought the book. The first few pages hit me like a physical blow. The author, a world-renowned surgeon, Dr. Hiromi Shinya, made a staggering claim. In over 40 years of practice, he had never written a death certificate for his own patients. This wasn't an eye doctor. This was a man who performed colonoscopies and removed cancerous polyps for a living. How was that even possible? He explained that it wasn't just about his surgical skill. It was about teaching his patients a way of life, a method that prevented disease from recurring, with a near 0% cancer recurrence rate for those who followed it. Then came the core concept, the idea that turned my entire worldview upside down: the miracle enzyme. Dr. Shinya explains that our body contains over 5,000 types of enzymes, each with a single, specific job. But he theorizes that these don't exist in isolation. Instead, the body produces a master, prototype enzyme, the miracle enzyme, which can then transform into any specific enzyme the body needs at a given moment. He noticed, for instance, that when a person drinks a lot of alcohol, the body uses a large amount of alcohol-degrading enzymes in the liver. At the same time, the enzymes needed for digestion in the stomach tend to become deficient. This suggested a common pool. He also referenced the work of Dr. Edward Howell, a pioneering enzyme researcher, who proposed a similar theory of a finite enzyme potential. Dr. Howell argued that an organism is endowed with a limited quantity of this enzyme energy at birth, and when it's exhausted, life ends. Suddenly, my life made sense in the worst possible way. It was a massive aha moment. Every beer I drank wasn't just a fun beverage. It was forcing a huge withdrawal from my enzyme account to be converted into alcohol-degrading enzymes. Every steak I ate, with its complex proteins, required a colossal expenditure of digestive enzymes. Every stressful day, every sleepless night, every exposure to pollution, all of it was draining this finite resource. I wasn't just living, I was hemorrhaging my life force. The why behind my constant fatigue and poor health was suddenly crystal clear. I was in a state of chronic enzyme bankruptcy. I was stealing enzymes from vital bodily repairs, like fixing my skin or reducing inflammation, just to process the junk I was putting into my body. It was a zero-sum game, and I was losing badly. This new understanding was my wake-up call. I didn't just read the book, I devoured it. And with every chapter, I began to deconstruct the pillars of my old, unhealthy life. It was a painful but necessary audit of my habits. Let's start with meat, my supposed source of strength. Dr. Shinya's book argues that a diet centered on animal protein actually accelerates the aging process. He explains that consuming large amounts of meat, which lacks fiber, leads to it staying in our relatively long intestines for too long, where it putrefies and creates toxins. This not only burdens the gut, but also forces the body to expend precious enzymes on detoxification. He also points out the anatomical evidence. Our 32 teeth are composed of incisors for cutting vegetables, canines for tearing, and many molars for grinding grains, a structure far more suited to a plant-based diet than a carnivorous one. His ideal dietary ratio is a stunning 85 to 90% plant-based foods to only 10 to 15% animal protein. Looking at my old food diary, I was probably living on an 80% animal-based diet. It was a complete inversion of what my body was designed for. The next part was even more shocking, as the book took aim at foods I considered pillars of health. First, dairy. I drank milk religiously, believing the marketing that it was essential for strong bones. The book presents a stunning counter-argument. Dr. Shinya observed that in countries with the highest dairy consumption, like the United States, there were also very high rates of osteoporosis. He explains that milk from cows is for calves, and it's high in protein. When humans consume it in large quantities, it makes our body's pH more acidic. To neutralize this acidity, the body performs a balancing act by leaching alkaline minerals, like calcium, directly from our own bones and teeth. So, my habit of drinking milk to prevent calcium loss might have been actively causing it. Then, there was yogurt, the so-called health food for the gut. I ate it every day, but Dr. Shinya, based on over 300,000 clinical cases, states flatly, "In fact, I have yet to see anyone who has good intestinal characteristics from eating yogurt every day." Even green tea, my go-to healthy antioxidant drink, came under scrutiny. He confirms the catechins are good, but he warns that the tannins, the component that gives tea its astringent taste, can damage the stomach lining when consumed in large quantities. His clinical data showed that people who drank a lot of tea, like tea masters, often had signs of atrophic gastritis, a precancerous condition of the stomach. My next bad habit to face was my reliance on quick fixes and pills. A little heartburn? Pop an antacid. A headache? Painkiller. The book gave me a harsh dose of reality with the statement, all medicines are, to some extent, foreign substances to the body, which means they are all poisons. His logic on stomach medicine was particularly eye-opening. Antacids work by suppressing stomach acid, but that acid is our first line of defense, killing bacteria that enter with our food. By constantly neutralizing it, I was essentially leaving the gates of my body unguarded, allowing harmful microbes to pass deeper into my system. Furthermore, he argues that the more you take these drugs, the weaker your stomach becomes, creating a vicious cycle of dependency. I was also guilty of using supplements as a crutch. I'd skip eating fruit, thinking I could just take a vitamin C pill. But Dr. Shinya emphasizes that nutrients in whole foods are packaged with the very enzymes needed for their absorption. A pill is an isolated chemical. An orange is a living package of vitamins, minerals, fiber, and enzymes, all working in synergy. My healthy shortcuts were actually bankrupting me nutritionally. Finally, the book forced me to see my body not as a collection of separate parts, but as a single, deeply interconnected system. Dr. Shinya criticizes modern medicine for its overspecialization, calling it seeing the trees but not the forest. A stomach doctor only looks at the stomach, an eye doctor only the eye. But the body doesn't work that way. He provides a simple example. A single bad tooth can lead to improper chewing. This undigested food burdens the stomach and intestines, leading to poor nutrient absorption, which in turn affects the health of every single cell in the body. Everything is connected. This holistic view applied to all my habits. Water wasn't just for quenching thirst. It was the essential partner of the miracle enzyme, the transport medium for all nutrients, and the vehicle for removing toxins. The timing was crucial, and his rule of drinking 500 milliliters 1 hour before meals became my new non-negotiable. And sleep. I learned the profound danger of eating right before bed. It can lead to food and stomach acid refluxing into the throat. To protect the airway from this reflux, the body can constrict the passage, leading to episodes of apnea or stopped breathing. My late-night snacking wasn't just adding calories. It was compromising the quality of my sleep and depriving my entire body of oxygen. The biggest lesson of all was this: I had to start listening. My body had been sending me messages for years. The bloating, The acne, the fatigue, they weren't random annoyances. They were symptoms. They were my body's language. And for the first time, I was finally ready to learn how to speak it. So, I made a commitment, a complete lifestyle overhaul. It wasn't easy. The first week, the cravings for sugar, salt, and greasy food were overwhelming. My body was in withdrawal from the junk I had been feeding it. But I pushed through, focusing on just one day at a time. And slowly, miraculously, things began to change. Let me walk you through a day in my life now. I wake up naturally around 6 a.m., usually before my alarm, feeling genuinely rested. The first thing I do is drink 500 milliliters of good, filtered, room temperature water. It feels like I'm waking up my body from the inside out. Then, I do some light stretching and maybe a short walk to get the blood flowing. About 30 to 40 minutes after my water, I eat fruit. Fresh, vibrant, enzyme-rich fruit. My actual breakfast comes about 30 minutes after that. It's usually a bowl of brown rice mixed with other whole grains like millet or quinoa, served with some steamed vegetables, and maybe some natto or seaweed for added nutrients. Lunch is something I now prepare myself. It strictly follows the 85-15 rule. It's a large container filled with a colorful mix of steamed and raw vegetables, beans, seeds, and a small piece of grilled fish. And I eat it slowly, away from my desk. I chew every single bite, savoring the flavors. And the result is astounding. No afternoon crash. Zero. My energy is stable and consistent all day. I might take a short 5 or 10-minute nap after lunch if I feel the need. And as the book promised, it feels like a complete system reset. Dinner is now my lightest meal of the day, and I make sure to finish it by 7 p.m. at the latest. This gives my body a full 4 to 5 hours to digest before I go to sleep. My evenings are calm now. I read, I talk with family, I unwind. I go to bed feeling light, comfortable, and ready for deep, restorative sleep. The results have been nothing short of life-changing. My skin, once a constant source of frustration, completely cleared up. My digestive system, which used to be a chaotic mess, is now calm and predictable for the first time in my adult life. I lost the stubborn fat around my waist without ever counting a single calorie or feeling like I was dieting. But the most profound change has been my energy and mental clarity. The brain fog that I thought was a permanent fixture of my personality is gone. It's like a dirty window has been wiped clean, and I can finally see the world with focus and vibrancy. But the transformation went deeper than just the physical. The book talks at length about how a positive mental state, what he calls love, happiness, and a sense of purpose, can literally boost your immune system and activate your body's healing mechanisms. He describes it as the circle of happiness. As I started feeling better physically, my outlook on life naturally improved. I had the energy to reconnect with friends and pursue old hobbies. I was more patient, more present in my relationships. I felt happier. And I truly believe that this positive feedback loop, just as Dr. Shinya described, further amplified my physical healing. It taught me that health isn't just about avoiding bad things. It's about actively cultivating good things in your diet, your habits, and your heart. This has been a long and detailed journey, and I've shared a lot of information. So, if I had to boil everything down into a simple, actionable plan for you to start your own journey today, it would be these 7 golden rules from the Enzyme Factor. Adopt the 85-15 diet. Make 85% of your plate plant-based foods, especially whole grains, vegetables, and fruits. Animal protein should be a small side dish, not the main event, because your body is evolutionarily designed to thrive on plants. Eat whole, unprocessed foods. Choose brown rice over white rice, whole fruits over juices. The closer a food is to its natural, living state, the more life-giving enzymes it contains. Chew your food. Aim for 30 to 50 chews per bite. This is the first and most critical step of digestion, and it conserves an immense amount of your precious enzyme reserves. Drink good water at the right time. Aim for 1.5 to 2 liters of good quality, filtered, non-chilled water per day. Drink it primarily between meals, especially 1 hour before you eat, to aid circulation without diluting digestion. Finish eating 4 to 5 hours before bed. Allow your stomach to be completely empty when you go to sleep. This simple act can dramatically improve your sleep quality and prevent a host of health issues like acid reflux and sleep apnea. Practice moderate exercise. Avoid excessive exercise that produces a flood of harmful free radicals. A daily walk, stretching, and light, enjoyable movement are far more beneficial for long-term health. Cultivate a happy, motivated mind. Your mental state directly impacts your physical health. Find joy, love, and purpose. The book argues that this feeling of happiness is a powerful stimulus for the body's entropy process. Its innate force for rebirth and regeneration. My journey started with a book, but it was built and sustained by small, conscious actions, day after day. Your health is the most valuable asset you will ever own. It's not determined by your genes nearly as much as it's determined by your habits. You don't have to wait for a health crisis to make a change. Your body is talking to you right now. My hope is that by sharing my story, I've helped you understand its language a little better. I'm not asking you to believe me blindly. I'm asking you to start an experiment with yourself. Try one of these rules for just 1 week. Just one. See how you feel. And if you're ready for a deep dive, I can't recommend the Enzyme Factor enough. It truly gave me the user manual for my own body that I never knew I was missing. Thank you for spending this hour with me. I wish you health, happiness, and a life full of energy. And that was the biggest lesson of all. I had to start listening. My body had been sending me messages for years. The bloating, the acne, the fatigue. They weren't random annoyances. They were symptoms. They were my body's language. And for the first time, thanks to this book, I was finally ready to learn how to speak it. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the theories and the why. I know exactly what you might be thinking right now, because it's the same thing I thought. This is all great, but what do I actually do? What do I eat tomorrow morning? How do I even start? It felt overwhelming. The gap between knowing the principles and living them seemed huge. So, to get myself started, I created a very concrete, practical plan. I mapped out an entire week of meals and created a simple checklist for water and exercise. This wasn't about being perfect. It was about creating a structure to break my old habits. Today, I want to share that exact plan with you. Think of it not as a strict prescription, but as a template, a starting point that you can adapt for your own life. This is the guide that took the book's wisdom off the page and put it onto my plate. Let's dive into the most important part, the food. This is a sample 1-week menu that I followed. It's designed around the book's core principles, the 85/15 plant-to-animal ratio, eating whole, unprocessed foods, and ensuring everything is as fresh as possible to maximize enzyme content. A crucial rule for every single day is this. If you eat fruit, eat it about 30 to 40 minutes before your main meal. Fruit digests very quickly, and eating it first prepares your digestive system and helps prevent overeating. A sample week following the Shinya method. Monday, breakfast, a bowl of steamed brown rice, a side of steamed broccoli, and a small dish of natto, fermented soybeans. Lunch, a large mixed green salad with a variety of colorful vegetables, topped with beans and seeds. The main course is a small fillet of grilled salmon, a fish with a lower body temperature than humans. Dinner, a light vegetable soup made with various root vegetables and a side of mixed grain porridge. Tuesday, breakfast, a bowl of oatmeal, whole, not instant, with some seeds sprinkled on top and a side of steamed kale. Lunch, leftover vegetable soup from last night and a brown rice ball on a gyrai with a seaweed wrap. Dinner, a vegetable stir-fry with tofu, using minimal oil, served with a small portion of quinoa. Wednesday, breakfast, a bowl of mixed grains, brown rice, millet, barley, a small dish of Japanese pickles, unsweetened, and a bowl of miso soup with seaweed. Lunch, a large plate of steamed vegetables, carrots, bok choy, mushrooms, with a tahini-based dressing and a small baked sweet potato. Dinner, a light meal of steamed asparagus and a small portion of grilled mackerel. Thursday, breakfast, brown rice porridge, congee, with slivered ginger and spring onions. Lunch, leftover vegetable stir-fry and quinoa from Tuesday night. Dinner, a lentil and vegetable stew, seasoned with herbs rather than heavy spices. Friday, breakfast, a bowl of brown rice, a simple omelet, using only 1 or 2 eggs, as it's part of the 15% animal portion, and a side of fresh greens. Lunch, a Buddha bowl, a base of brown rice, topped with chickpeas, avocado, shredded carrots, cucumber, and a light soy ginger dressing. Dinner, I usually kept Friday dinner very simple. Just a large plate of various steamed vegetables, and perhaps a small piece of steamed cod. Saturday, breakfast, mixed grain porridge with a few goji berries and seeds. Lunch, I'd make a big batch of food for the weekend. Today, it was a large vegetable curry, using coconut milk, not dairy, with brown rice. Dinner, a smaller portion of the leftover vegetable curry. Sunday, breakfast, a simple bowl of brown rice with a sprinkle of sesame seeds, and a bowl of miso soup. Lunch, using up any leftover vegetables from the week to make a large, clean out the fridge, salad or a light stir-fry. Dinner, a very light meal, perhaps just a baked potato and a side of steamed green beans, to prepare my digestive system for the week ahead. The most important thing I learned was consistency. Even if I had a small treat or a slightly heavier meal occasionally, ensuring that 95% of my meals followed these principles kept my body in a state of balance and health. Now let's talk about water. It sounds simple, but drinking water, according to the book, is a science in itself. I had to unlearn my old habit of drinking tap water or grabbing any bottled water off the shelf. Here's what I learned about choosing good water. A practical guide to good water. First, Dr. Shinya strongly advises against drinking tap water directly. The reason is the chlorine used for disinfection. When chlorine is added to water, it creates a large amount of active oxygen to kill microbes. This process, however, also means the water itself becomes highly oxidized. He essentially calls tap water rusted water. It also contains other potentially harmful substances like trihalomethanes, which are carcinogens. So what makes water good? The book defines it by 2 main conditions. It must be unpolluted by chemicals, and it must have a strong reduction potential. Reduction potential is a scientific term, but a simple way to think about it is as antioxidant power. Water with strong reduction potential has the ability to neutralize the harmful free radicals, the rust, in our bodies. Here are the practical solutions I implemented. I invested in a good water filter. The book recommends a machine that can perform electrolysis to create alkaline, ionized water, which he calls reduced water, nuak-ku. These filters are designed to remove harmful substances like chlorine and heavy metals, while also giving the water that strong, antioxidant reduction potential. This was an initial investment, but considering I drink almost 2 liters a day, it was the most sustainable option. When buying bottled water, I learned what to look for. Not all bottled water is equal. I started looking for mineral water with a good balance of calcium and magnesium. The book states the ideal ratio is about 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium to prevent calcium from building up in the cells, which can contribute to high blood pressure and hardening of the arteries. Deep sea water, which is rich in a variety of minerals, is also a good option. One thing to remember is that the reduction potential of water decreases over time when stored in plastic bottles, so fresher is always better. And finally, let's talk about exercise. My old approach was to go hard at the gym, believing that more sweat meant more health. The book completely flipped this idea on its head. A practical guide to gentle exercise. The core principle is to avoid excessive exercise. Dr. Shinya argues that intense, strenuous activity produces a massive amount of free radicals in the body, which consumes your precious enzymes and can actually accelerate aging. He points to marathon runners, who often look gaunt and older than their age, as an example of the body breaking down from excessive strain. The goal of movement should be to stimulate circulation and feel good, not to push your body to its absolute limit. So, I built a new, gentle routine based on his personal practice and advice. My morning activation routine. I adapted Dr. Shinya's own morning routine. When I wake up, while still in bed, I do some light movements with my hands and feet to get the circulation going. Then, I get up, open a window, and take several deep breaths of fresh morning air. After that, I do 5 to 10 minutes of gentle stretching. The goal, as the book explains, is to stimulate the 5 flows of the body: blood, lymph, digestion, urine, and air. This gentle start to the day energizes me without stressing my system. The daily walk. The book suggests that the most ideal form of exercise is walking 3 to 4 kilometers a day at your own comfortable pace. This became the cornerstone of my fitness. I walk during my lunch break or in the evening. It's simple, free, and incredibly effective at improving circulation and clearing my head without creating excessive oxidative stress. The power of deep breathing. This was a game changer. The book points out that you don't need intense exercise to get enough oxygen. Simply practicing deep breathing for a few minutes, several times a day, can improve the flow of air in your lungs, stimulate your metabolism, and calm your nervous system by activating the parasympathetic nerves. I do this at my desk whenever I feel stressed. This practical guide, the menu, the water, the exercise, became my roadmap. It wasn't about a radical, painful transformation overnight. It was about building a new foundation, one good choice at a time. It's about consistency over perfection. This plan is what took me from being chronically fine to feeling truly, vibrantly alive. And my hope is that it can be a starting point for you, too.